SuperTalk Mississippi media production.
State Treasurer David McRae is returning record amounts of money to Mississippians, whether it's through the College and Career Savings Program or the hundreds of millions in unclaimed money awaiting your claim. Treasurer David McRae says get your applications and claims in today. Treasury.ms.gov.
Oh, yeah.
Good morning, Mississippi.
Everything gonna be all right this morning.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
Oh, yeah.
Here on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Woo! Now, when I was a young boy, at the age of 5, my mother said I was gonna be the greatest man alive. But now I'm a man.
Good Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi. Can't do this alone. Got my running buddy, my co-pilot, the guy that rides alongside every single day. I don't think he ever takes a day off. Never takes a day off. Lance Tolbert, good morning, my friend.
Good morning. Good wet morning. Goodness.
It hasn't started here yet. But, man, there is a big part of the state of Mississippi that has potentially got some wet stuff coming their way, coming your way throughout the course of the day. Byhalia? I can never, ever say the name of the town Byhalia. Free advertisement incoming. I don't even know if it's still a business. Do you know where I'm going with this?
I don't. I'm waiting here.
There's the old jingle that, you know how sometimes a jingle will just get stuck in your mind forever? You hear one word and it triggers it. Byhalia Tire and Battery.
Oh, good.
Quality you can ride on. That's the one.
Yeah, I haven't been there in about 5 years in Oxford area, so I remember that very well, yeah.
Oh, I don't think that commercial has run in 15 years,
Yeah,
but it was an effective one.
I remember it.
Cloudy skies during the morning hours, followed by scattered showers and thunderstorms the afternoon. High of 85. Winds out of the south-southeast at 5 to 10 miles an hour, but only a 40% chance of rain. Tutwiler, that's a good spot. Right there in the heart of the Delta. Mostly cloudy this morning with scattered thunderstorms developing later in the day. High near 85. 5 to 10 miles an hour with winds out of the south-southeast. Chance rate about 50%. Port Gibson, the city too beautiful to burn. Mostly cloudy skies during the morning, followed by thunderstorms in the afternoon. 88 is your high today. Chance of rain about 60%. And the way we used to go when we would go to the beach. Don't really go this way anymore. Loosedale, showers in the morning. Hey, you probably still go this way if you're, I don't know, Jackson South?
There's several different ways to go. That's one of them, though. Then
there are 138 different options on the little spider web of roads that make their way through.
There's about 3 that I'm willing to take, though, is what I'm saying. Yeah. And that route, and then you got the bypass, and then the usual, where you go through like Simmis and all that, Alabama, through Mobile. You go through all the old produce stands, and maybe I need to get some strawberries or a watermelon for the beach.
Some snap peas.
Yeah, man.
Showers in the morning with isolated thunderstorms arriving in the afternoon. High of 89. Winds south-southeast, 5 to 10 miles an hour. 40% chance of rain today in Loosedale. Yeah, we used to kind of work our way down 45.
Yeah, when I lived in North Mississippi, that was the only way I really liked going. It was just a straight shot. Beautiful road, easy driving. Down here, man, I
usually go now Birmingham, Montgomery, and then work down through Florala.
Oh, yeah.
And all those parts. All right. C Spire text line is open to you at 601-879-4395. Give your business the edge. Your team has you covered on the field. C Spire has you covered everywhere else with the best technology for home work and on the go, backed by local 24/7 customer support. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. I work 6 days a week, and Lance provides a pleasant and entertaining start to each of those days. He is a pro with a great and eclectic taste in music. While I hope he gets a well-earned vacation, I hope he leaves a playlist when he goes.
Yeah, they're easy to find.
Jeff in Grenada. Tutwiler.
Thank you for the compliments, too. Mighty nice.
Mighty nice. Makes you feel good early on a Thursday morning.
This early Thursday morning, that's what I need every day. That's like a double shot of espresso for me.
Tutwiler is Charlie Pride country.
Well, we had a funny the other day. It was Pride Month, so I just played Charlie Pride all day.
That's really good.
Yeah. I love it.
Great Charlie Pride story. Back in the, I guess it was kind of civil rights era, he was playing a show in Memphis. I think it was at the Orpheum. And most of the audience had never seen Charlie Pride in the flesh. They had only heard his voice. And his voice did not necessarily match the pigment of his skin in most people's mind's eye. And so he came out on stage and he stepped to the microphone, and there was just kind of a hush in the audience. He goes, "Hey, I just got back from the beach and I got a great tan. Is that okay with everybody?" And they roared, and then he started playing. It was a great show.
Man, he's a legend. Goodness gracious.
George H.W. Bush was born today in 1924, 41st president of the United States. That was after serving as 8 years as the vice president to Ronald Reagan, 43rd vice president, served in that role from 1981 until 1989. He was born in Milton, Massachusetts. Quite the life that George H.W. Bush lived. Anne Frank, of the Diary of Anne Frank fame, infamy, sadness, was born on this day in 1929. Victim of the Nazi Holocaust, author of, the intention was not for her to be an author, but her diary was later published. Born in Frankfurt, Germany. Kind of light on the birthdays today, but I think this is a good one, Lance. Adriana Lima, 43 years old today.
There you go.
She was born in 1981, Brazilian supermodel. Born in Salvador, Bahia, Brazil. On this day in history, a few of these that are kind of interesting. Harry Houdini, on this day in 1923, freed himself from a straitjacket while suspended upside down 40 feet in the air above ground in New York City.
There's a great video on YouTube. I've been watching it. I've seen that escape a couple of times, but I had to go back and watch it again, where he's hung upside down. And it's the real video, so if you want to watch it, it's available. It's called Harry Houdini Straitjacket Escape, where he makes his famous straitjacket escape. And, man, he's gyrating and doing everything 40 feet above the ground. Everybody's looking up, and he figures it out and gets it off.
Is that available in HD?
It's pretty grainy, but I think somebody's standing there doing the running the wheel on the video machine. But yeah, it was pretty cool watching that. I mean, it's hard to understand, doing something like that. But he did even crazier stuff after that.
Mm-hmm. This day in 1931, Al Capone was indicted on 5,000 counts of prohibition violations and perjury. On this day in 1954, Bill Haley and his Comets released the hit single Rock Around the Clock. 1, 2, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, rock. Cleopatra premiered in this day in 1963, starring Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Premiered in New York City. At the time, it was the most expensive film ever made.
And Elizabeth made sure of that, I'm sure. So great taste. Great movie, though. I mean, it really is a classic. And Burton, goodness, I'll watch anything that he's in. Those are just stars of the silver screen.
Dark day in Mississippi history. On this day in 1963, American civil rights activist Medgar Evers assassinated by white supremacist Byron De La Beckwith. That happened in Jackson. This day in 1981, Raiders of the Lost Ark, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring Harrison Ford, with story by George Lucas, premiered. It was the first of the Indiana Jones films.
I love Indiana Jones.
Which of the trilogy, the original trilogy, was your favorite? You
I love the first one, Raiders of the Lost Ark, because it was the first one. But as you got to Temple of Doom, it was excellent. Last Crusade, where you have Sean Connery in there and dealing with the Nazis, and that's always a constant in the Raiders of the Lost Ark and all those. You always got the Nazis creeping around. So I always found that fascinating. And I didn't have a problem with the Legend of the Crystal Skulls one. I mean, it was different and weird and kind of off the beaten path, way past the time frame in which any explorer would have been out exploring the jungles. But then you get with the last one. I didn't even watch it, but the top three, though, they're big fans.
Temple of Doom, man. That was the first super graphic movie scene I ever saw. Ooh, you know the scene I'm talking about. This day in 1991, Boris Yeltsin wins Russia's first presidential election. He got 57% of the vote. It was quite the comeback. He was way down in the polls, and then some of the business leaders in the
Politburo,
the state of Russia, decided that he was the right choice. And finally, on this day in 2018, Donald Trump met Kim Jong-un. Singapore summit between North Korea and the United States. It was the first time a North Korean leader and an incumbent U.S. president had ever met in person. We got news headlines coming up for you next. And yes, you hear that music. We're back right after this. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Ladies and gentlemen, here we go. Now back to Mornings with Richard Cross.
Now that's entertainment.
Aruba, Jamaica, ooh, I wanna take you. Bermuda, Bahama, come on, pretty mama. Key Largo, Montego, baby, why don't we go? Jamaica, off the Florida Keys. There's a place called Kokomo. That's where you wanna go to get away from it all.
Big news yesterday in the Magnolia State. Mississippi Agriculture Commissioner Andy Gibson is the first Republican candidate to officially launch a campaign aimed at being the state's next governor. Tate Reeves will serve the remaining time in his gubernatorial career, but then term limit's going to get him. Multiple GOP office holders at the state level have mulled potential bids to run the state from the governor's mansion. We are moving toward one of the most entertaining and expensive, I'd say one of the most entertaining and the most expensive Republican primary for governor in a few years. Now, things could certainly change between now and then. So Andy Gibson officially throwing his hat in the ring. There have been murmurs and whispers and not so quiet thoughts about people like Lieutenant Governor Delbert Hosemann entering the race. State Auditor Shad White entering the race. Prominent South Mississippi businessman Tommy Duff potentially entering the race. Attorney General Lynn Fitch entering the race. Will all of them put their names in the ring, put themselves out there, officially announce themselves at some point as candidate for governor in Mississippi? I don't know, but I'm here for it. We're here for it, aren't we, Lance?
That's going to be fun.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Gibson, though, the first to make the official announcement. He served as commissioner of the Mississippi Department of Agriculture and Commerce since 2018. He was appointed to fill a vacant seat previously held by Senator Cindy Hyde Smith, who was most recently reelected after garnering about 58% of the vote in a race against Democrat challenger Robert Bradford. Gibson prides himself on fiercely being loyal to President Donald Trump. Donald Trump, by the way, got 61% of the vote in Mississippi during the 2024 general. And there is a strong commitment to fiscal responsibility and consolidating government agencies to save taxpayers money. Also touts accomplishments achieved during his time as Ag Commissioner, including connecting the state fairgrounds to a water well to prevent the grounds from having to depend on Jackson's water system. Increasing security at the state fair to try to make that event safer. Keeping the Dixie National Rodeo up and running amid the COVID-19 pandemic, and more. Andy Gibson, always a fun conversation, and hopefully we will visit with him in the near future. Jeff in Grenada says Shad should run. Delbert has no shot. Gibson would work. Actually, he said Dilbert.
Isn't that a comedy or comedy strip or something? Dilbert.
Yes, it was. Mm-hmm. Comic strip.
Yeah. That's going to be a crowded field, though.
Yeah, it is.
There'll be a lot of sparring going on.
And will it stay? Will the sparring stay above the belt?
Oh no, you know it will not. It's Republicans. We've seen how that goes.
You seen the announcement for the Riley Center? That's the Performing Arts Center on campus at Mississippi State. They have announced their 25-26 lineup, and it's really good. Star-studded list of musical acts coming to Meridian, the 25-26 performance series at Mississippi State's Riley Center for Education and Performing.
Place is beautiful too. I've been over there. If you haven't been to Meridian lately, go. They have a great art center, a great community, and the Riley Center, as you were saying, it's lights out, man.
Mm-hmm. New season will include 7 concerts at the restored Victorian Theater, made up of well-known artists that span genres and generations, including Americana Quintet Band of Heathens, Southern rock staple Marshall Tucker Band, soul powerhouse Leela James, country music legend Randy Travis.
I don't think that's. We got a notice here on that one.
Hopefully he's still with us.
Somebody just said something. We had a text this morning that said something to the contrary to that. Let me double check.
Oh, really? Mm-hmm. I missed that. Popular vocal group Straight No Chaser. That's the you probably saw that late 90s. There were a dozen of them. It was an all a cappella men's group, and they did the 12 Days of Christmas. It's worth a quick YouTube search if you want to check that out. Tony-winning Leslie Odom Jr. and legendary classic rock band Kansas, all going to be at the Riley Center in the next year. Somebody says he had a stroke. I doubt he's going to be there.
Yeah, I think it was a stroke. I was trying to find out exactly what it was.
Okay.
But there was some news last night or this morning on him.
Yeah, I've seen pictures of him lately in a wheelchair. Yeah. Wife with him just about everywhere he goes.
You'd see Etta James, though. Give me a break. We do music every Saturday, and that was one of the ones we had this past Saturday. And, man, she is a soul queen.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness gracious.
Amtrak's return to the Mississippi Gulf Coast has been delayed yet again. The twice-daily route named the Mardi Gras was slated to be up and running actually this week, featuring stops in Bay St. Louis, Gulfport, Biloxi, and Pascagoula. However, infrastructure concerns in Mobile have put an official start date on hold. The city was tasked with building a new train station after demolishing an existing one that sustained damage during Hurricane Katrina nearly 2 decades ago. The city broke ground at a construction site next to the Mobile Convention Center in Cooper Riverside Park in October of 2024, but the track has not yet been cleared for passenger transportation. In the meantime, officials are eyeing a July or August launch date of the Amtrak service, which will offer morning and evening departures from Mobile and New Orleans, with the Mississippi stops along the way. Highly anticipated return of Amtrak will mark the first time the rail service has operated along the Gulf Coast since Hurricane Katrina hit back in 2005. Wow. A lot of people are really excited about this.
Well, the train is supposed to be a lot of fun. I've never really taken one around here. I lived in the East Coast a bit when it was, much easier to get to one and park here and do that. Yeah, that was always fun. I love the train. You kick your feet up and relax. Let somebody else do the driving for a minute.
Let somebody else do the driving. Protests over federal immigration enforcement raids and Donald Trump's move to mobilize the National Guard and Marines in Los Angeles are spreading nationwide, and they're expected to continue into the weekend. You've got that No Kings movement that's supposed to be happening. By the way, Christy Walton, one of the Walmart heiresses, is responsible for those newspaper ads, full-page newspaper ads that popped up all over the United States. I think it was, what's her name? Laura. It's not Loop. I can't remember her name. Does a bunch of kind of controversial investigative reporting, very right-leaning. Laura Loomer?
Loomer.
Yeah. She reached out to Walmart for a statement. They actually replied, and they said, look, we don't have anything to do with this. And released a statement that Christy Walton was doing that of her own volition. And apparently doesn't even live in the United States, at least not most of the time. Lives in Mexico, funding that. She's got plenty of money to burn. You've had immigration raid protests in Seattle, San Francisco, Los Angeles, Santa Ana, Denver, San Antonio, Austin, Dallas, Chicago, Philadelphia, Boston, New York, Washington, D.C., with more coming. More coming. In fact, we got a message this morning that said, would we be going to the anti-Trump protest?
It's multiplying like rabbits out there, those protests. Mm-hmm. And, they're promoting them pretty well, paying folks a little bit. You spend a week doing that, you got about $1,000 in your pocket.
There you go. And they provide the bricks.
Oh, yeah, man.
And the face mask.
Yeah, it's just show up. It's kind of BYOB. No, you don't even have to bring a brick. They got it for you.
The leader of the band of the Beach Boys, Brian Wilson, has passed away. We'll have more on this in the 7 o'clock hour, but let me just read you some of what his contemporaries said about him. John Lennon said, "The little girl I once knew, this is the greatest. Turn it up. Turn it right up. It's got to be a hit. It's the greatest record I've heard for weeks. It's fantastic. I hope it will be a hit." It's all Brian Wilson. He just uses the voices as instruments. You keep waiting for the fabulous breaks. Great arrangement. Bob Dylan said, "Oh, that ear. He should donate it to the Smithsonian, the records I used to listen to and still love. You can't make a record that sounds that way." Brian Wilson, he made all his records with 4 tracks, but you couldn't make his records if you had 100 tracks today. About Brian Wilson, Paul McCartney said, "I figure no one is educated musically till they've heard Pet Sounds. I love the orchestra, the arrangements. It may be going overboard to say it's the classic of the century, but to me it certainly is a total classic record that is unbeatable in many ways." Stevie Wonder said what he did was incredible. "I've always been into the harmonies, so I was inspired by what the Beach Boys were doing. They definitely influenced a generation of kids." Quotes from Carole King and Lamont Dozier and Paul Simon and Art Garfunkel and Glenn Campbell, who played with the Beach Boys for a while, and Neil Young and David Crosby, Graham Nash, on and on and on. The tributes pouring in for now the late Brian Wilson. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk, Mississippi.
From the SeabrookPaint.com.
It's time to switch on.
Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Little scoop, you don't know what I got. Well, I'm not bragging, babe, so don't put me down. But I've got the fastest set of wheels in town. When something comes up to me, he don't even try. Cause if he had a set of wings, man, I know she could fly. She's my little scoop, you don't know what I got.
The first CD I ever had was Led Zeppelin 3. Stairway to Heaven, Rock and Roll, and what else was on that?
My first record, I remember buying the record when I heard Guns N' Roses the first time, opening up from, I think it was Motley Crue.
The first cassette tape I ever had was the Surfing in the USA tape.
Nice. I had an 8-track, Sly and the Family Stones. That was my first piece of plastic there.
Yeah, I didn't.
Had Kool in the Gang.
8-track was before me, buddy.
It was before me, but the truck I drove, that's what it had.
Oh, that's right. I forgot you told me about that.
I had 2 8-tracks. It was Sly and the Family Stones and Kool in the Gang. And that was my initial, foray into music. Really was going, what is this? I've never heard this stuff. And you just reach in there.
This is interesting.
Yeah, this is cool. Oh, no wonder his name's Kool in the Gang. Okay.
Time for your daily sports update, brought to you by Pearl River Resort. Visit them online at pearlriverresort.com, your destination for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. Pearl River Resort. You sure that wasn't Led Zeppelin 4? Yeah, I think it was. You're right. You're right.
We went to a baseball tournament, and, well, it was a camp way down in Florida, and I went with some buddies from Brandon. Their dad drove us down there in a van, and we listened to Led Zeppelin the whole way. And from Jackson to South Florida is a pretty long drive, and all the way down and all the way back. And that was really one of my first times I'd heard the whole compilation of Led Zeppelin, and I was blown away. I mean, we were like 14, you know.
Oh, it's unbelievable.
I'd heard them, but I mean, I'd not heard the library. You know?
Yeah, Led Zeppelin 4 is the
away.
one. The old man with the sticks stacked on his back.
Yeah.
On the album art. Black Dog, The Battle of Evermore, Misty Mountain Hop, Going to California, Rock and Roll, Stairway to Heaven, Four Sticks, When the Levee Breaks.
That'll get it done.
Good stuff.
That'll get it done.
NBA Finals rolled on last night. Pacers beat the Thunder 116-107. Kind of a seesaw battle. OKC had the lead at the end of the first quarter. Pacers took a lead into the locker room. Thunder outscored the Pacers by 9 in the third, and then the fourth quarter belonged to Indiana, 32-18. They outscored them in the final 12 minutes. Pretty entertaining series so far. Nobody's really watching. The television numbers are way down. Lowest they've been since the bubble finals during the COVID year. But that's what we had. Great scene in Indianapolis last night for that ball game. The College World Series starts tomorrow. Coastal Carolina and Arizona will play in the first game at 1 o'clock on ESPN tomorrow afternoon. And then tomorrow night, it's Oregon State and Louisville. That's at 6. On Saturday, on the other side of the bracket, UCLA and the Murray State Racers, 1 o'clock on Saturday afternoon. And then kind of the marquee game of the opening round, Arkansas and LSU at 6 o'clock on ESPN on Saturday night.
That'll be a nice opening salvo, but I'm hoping for a Murray State Coastal Carolina final. That's what I'm pulling for. Yeah, that's what I want. I know those guys didn't spend a lot of money, and they play a great brand of baseball. As I've told you many times, I love watching those teams get on bigger fields. Kind of equalizes things a bit.
A lot of doubles for that Murray State team.
It'll be fun.
Charles Schwab plays big.
Who do I think? I think it'll be Oregon State and Arkansas in the finals, but I want Coastal and Murray State. So.
Wouldn't that be quite the story, the rematch of 2018, if you were to get Oregon State and Arkansas in the finals?
And who do you think pulls it off if Van Horn gets back to it? Do you think he punches the ticket finally? I mean, probably the greatest coach in college baseball right now. Just hasn't done it. Hadn't been able to cash that ticket yet.
I kind of want it for Dave Van Horn. I kind of want it for my friends that are Arkansas fans. I got a bunch of them. But Arkansas fans writ large are insufferable.
Oh, man. I had a nice meltdown over there my senior year. So,
They let you know about it?
Yeah, they were trying to climb onto the field, and I kind of spurred them on a bit too.
Did you now?
Yeah, I kind of helped them out with their anger. And next day I showed up and they had this long piece of butcher paper. It took up the whole. Baum Stadium was new, but it said, "Welcome, Ole Miss. Go home, number 23," and that was me, number 23. So very nice.
One of the most difficult golf courses in the world, Oakmont Country Club, is hosting the U.S. Open, and it gets started like right now. Some of the stories coming out of Oakmont, we chatted about this on Monday afternoon a little bit on Sports Talk Mississippi. There is these golf courses, they all have legends that go with them, and one of the legends that goes along with Oakmont is what the people that kind of run the clubs say. Hey, you need us to host a U.S. Open? Give us a day to get ready. Now, you have to understand that this is something that they prepare for months, if not years. It's that big of a challenge just on a daily basis. The greens are lightning fast. Lightning fast. In fact, the fairways at Oakmont are probably faster than some golf courses' greens. I don't know if you saw this, Lance, from the practice rounds. You had guys kind of playing around. They would have a ball in the fairway. I think it was on number 1, kind of a downhill par 4. And guys were putting it from 150 yards out.
Yeah, that's
just playing around.
That's
but
tight.
Like, ooh, can I keep it on the green from 150 out? And not everybody could.
I can only imagine how much fun those guys have leading up to the tournament. I mean, there's so much pressure. $21.5 million on the line.
Yeah.
You got 3 days of grueling golf, but they've got to have a good time for those couple of days leading up to it.
Odds-on favorite to win, Scotty Scheffler, who has played better golf than anybody on the planet over the last 3-4 years.
Well, if you're a hollow earther, in the planet could work too. But Bryson DeChambeau,
yes,
Bryson DeChambeau, he won it last year. You think he has a shot of a repeat here?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. They are underway. Guy by the name of Maxwell Moldovan has the early lead.
Who?
He made an eagle on the first hole of the day.
That's a good way to start. If I did that, I would end up hitting, everything would be a double bogey after that, though.
Yeah.
Get too much confidence.
Can't eagle them all if you don't eagle the first.
That's right.
As the saying goes. Got a Mississippi flavor with a couple of amateurs that are going off today. Pair of Ole Miss golfers, Michael Lasasso and Cameron Tankersley, both playing this morning. Lasasso goes off at 7:35 Eastern Time. Tankersley at 7:46 Eastern Time. Davis Riley is in the field. He has played good golf this year as well. So great test. And for people that like watching professional golfers struggle, this is the hole for you. Or this is the tournament for you as well. So you've got like 26 guys that have gone off so far. Mentioned an eagle on the first tee. Trent Phillips went off the back. He's bogeyed. No, he went off the front. He's bogeyed his first 2 holes. So he's 2 over par, 2 holes in. You got one guy 2 under par, 1 hole.
Yeah, they're not starting well. They're going to go at 3 or 4 up under par out of the gate.
Yeah.
That's a good sign.
Not
tough day.
Not great. We got TV times yesterday for football season, kind of, for both Ole Miss and Mississippi State. ESPN released the full slate of kickoff windows for the Rebels and the Bulldogs and everybody else in the SEC. Ole Miss's season opener against Georgia State will be at 6:45 p.m. In Week 2, they go to Kentucky. That's a 2:30 game on ABC. Week 3 against Arkansas will kick at either 6 or 6:45. After that, it becomes a little more general time windows. A flex start time, which means either afternoon or night for Tulane. Same thing for LSU on September 27th. When Ole Miss hosts Washington State on October 11th, they will kick at 11:45 in the morning.
Yay.
Georgia game on the road is a flex time, so either afternoon or evening. Road game at Oklahoma will be an early kick, so that's either 11 o'clock on ABC or 11:45 somewhere else. South Carolina home game will be either in the afternoon or at night. The game against the Citadel will kick at noon Central Time. That's on November 8th. You get an afternoon or evening start for the Ole Miss game against Florida, and we know the time of the Egg Bowl. Mississippi State hosting Ole Miss, 11 a.m. on either ABC or ESPN. For Mississippi State, they open with a night game against Alcorn State at home. That's at 5. They host Tennessee. That's either afternoon or night. They go to Florida, an afternoon window for that game. Same thing when they go to Arkansas. Road trip to Missouri will be a night game. Northern Illinois is an afternoon kickoff. Texas A&M in the night window. That's a road game. Either afternoon or night for their game against Texas in Starkville. Georgia will be an 11 a.m. kick. And the Ole Miss game kicking at 11 as well. So, gives you a little help in terms of planning for travel. Mississippi Lottery update coming up next. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Track.
Mornings with Richard Cross.
People want to hear the truth, man. That's what we're going to do.
Super Talk, Mississippi.
scheduling nugget for you. So it doesn't have anything to do with Mississippi State or Ole Miss. Kind of has something to do with Mississippi State. For the first time in 3 years, no, that's not right. For the first time in 9 years, Starkville has been tabbed as the host city for the Mississippi High School Activities Association's state championship football games. MHSAA officials announced yesterday that title matchups from all 7 of the state's classifications will be held at Davis-Wade Stadium December 4th, 5th, and 6th. The most recent championships were held at Southern Miss in Hattiesburg last year. It happened in Oxford at Ole Miss 2 seasons ago. Ricky Neves says, first, we express our appreciation to Mississippi State and Starkville for continued support and graciously opening the doors to welcome us. We have zero doubt the experience for our schools, student athletes, coaches, and fans will be second to none. Very cool. So the state championship game is going to be in Starkville. You'll have 1A and 5A on Thursday, December 4th. On Friday, December 5th, 4A and 6A will crown their champions. And then on Saturday, a triple header starting at noon, 3A, 2A, and then on Saturday night, 7A. We'll have it all. Last year's state champions were Baldwin, Heidelberg, Choctaw County, Poplarville, West Point, Grenada, and Tupelo. Fun time of the year.
Oh, I can't wait. We'll have some late Friday nights, but
yeah,
man, it's going to be a good one.
Yeah, you will. All right, it's time for, let me remind you, your sports update was brought to you by Pearl River Resort, your destination for casino thrills, family fun, and live entertainment. Pearl River Resort, online at pearlriverresort.com. Now we've got your Mississippi Lottery update brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery. Find them online at mslottery.com. Lotto America, no jackpot winner in last night's drawing. For Saturday, the estimated jackpot, $2.1 million with an estimated cash value of $940,000. Last night's numbers were 4, 12, 13, 20, 26. The star ball was 4. The all-star bonus multiplier was 2. No jackpot winner last night for Powerball, and so it goes to $80 million, the cash value of $36 million. Last night's numbers, 13, 25, 29, 37, 53. Powerball of 3, and the power play multiplier was 2.
Double play numbers from Wednesday, June 11. 4, 29, 37, 48, and 56. Powerball of 6. Mega Millions. There's no jackpot winner yet. That drawing is going to be tomorrow on the 13th, Friday the 13th. $264 million.
That pot's getting right.
Yeah, it's getting on up there. The estimated take-home pay, $117.3 million. Numbers from Tuesday, 10, 11, 14, 38, 45. Mega Ball of 24.
No jackpot winner last night for Mississippi Match 5. Tonight it's $56,000. Last night's numbers 1, 2, 22, 24, and 28.
Wow. It sounds like that would be a winner. But,
yeah, I know.
Wednesday, cash $3, $500 midday, 389. Evening numbers 198. Cash $4, $5,000 prize. Midday numbers 9078. Evening 2121. Fireball of 8 with a cash pop of 14 in the midday. And a 2 for the fireball and a cash pop of 1 for the evening.
Get in the fast lane. There are only 2 NASCAR Powerball drawings remaining. The next drawing takes place a week from today, Thursday, June 19th, when 3 winners will each take home $2,000. All winners will qualify for the NASCAR Powerball Playoff. That's the national competition racing toward that $1 million grand prize and a chance to attend the NASCAR Championship Series. To sign up for this promotion, you must be a Mississippi Lottery insider and a resident of the great state of Mississippi. Visit mslottery.com to become a lottery insider to automatically receive the entry form. And don't forget, enter any winning, no, that's actually not right. Enter any non-winning hot game. $2 heat stroke, $5 blazing hot bucks, $10 red hot cash. You take a losing ticket, enter it into the newest bonus promotion, Sizzlin' Summer Cash, for your shot at prizes from $500 gift cards all the way to $25,000 in cold, hard cash.
Take it.
Next bonus drawing is a week from yesterday, Wednesday the 18th. Visit mslottery.com. Click on the bonus promos tab for full details.
We didn't have any big winners, but we had a bunch of winners. A cash for Port Gibson woman, $1,350 in the pocket. Purchased at a Port Gibson and Port Gibson. Nick's one-stop players from Columbia and Jackson won $2,600. And a Memphis, Tennessee man won $5,000 from Abbey Mart of Mississippi and Olive Branch.
Players from Hazelhurst and Clinton each won $1,000 on tickets from Raja Food Mart in Hazelhurst and Quick Trip in Flowood. Brookhaven and Jackson players each won $2,500 on tickets from a one-stop in Brookhaven and Don Gabriel Market in Jackson.
Oh, match 5 winners. We had players from Theodore, Alabama, Weir, Senatobia. They all won $800 on tickets purchased in Mississippi, plus players from Mobile, Natchez, and Braxton won $1,000. And then a Summerall man won $2,800 using 3 tickets on the match 5 from Ramey's and Dandy Dan's in Summerall.
Mobile, Alabama won $1,000 on a ticket from Midway Food Mart in Moss Point. State Line player won $800 on a ticket from Clark Oil in State Line. And finally, on that $20 200X Cash Blitz scratch-off, a Durant man won $1,000 on a ticket from Tobacco Warehouse in Kosciuszko. And a Hernando man won $2,000 on a ticket from Tobacco Warehouse in Hernando. That's your update, brought to you by the Mississippi Lottery, mslottery.com. News is next, then 7 o'clock hour. Ashley Edwards is going to join us at 7:37. We're back after this.
The views and opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, and callers on this show are not the opinions of TeleSouth Communications, its management, or advertisers.
What are we going to do?
Rise and shine with information and insight.
Check it out.
Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
Room buys an 8 by 12 4-bedroom. I'm a man of means by no means. King of the road. Trailers for sale or rent. Rooms to let 50 cents. No.
You mentioned yesterday the Adam Sandler performance at Tad Smith Coliseum.
Yeah, did you go back and find it or something?
Years ago. No, my first ever concert, at least first one that I remember. Pretty sure it's the first one I ever went to. Also at Tad Smith Coliseum. It was the Randy Travis Digging Up Bones tour.
Nice.
With the opening act, Alan Jackson.
Oh, I love Alan Jackson. Come on, man. Guy with a mullet and a mustache like that.
Had just come out.
Yeah. What a great song.
That was
I wore that. I mean, like the Clint Black album, with Better Man and all that.
Mm-hmm.
I absolutely tore that up. But
man, some of that Brooks and Dunn 90s, oh, that was good stuff. Good stuff. Hey, I sent you a text last night, and I said, hey, remind me to tell a salmon story.
Yeah.
You said it's salmon.
I'm kidding. I love
So Jane's been out of town. She got back late last night, had a work trip. And so I had first 2 of the kids, and then Ava Montgomery got home yesterday afternoon. She'd been out of town with a friend, and so all 3 of them. So, meals and all the places they need to go and all that good stuff. Being a dad, I think that's what that's called. Mm-hmm. My kids have varying food interests, or maybe they're just picky eaters, I should say. Perhaps I should just say it that way. So, let's see, today's Thursday. I guess it was Monday night. That was the day Jane left. I think I named every restaurant in Oxford, and I could get one to agree on a place, or the other to agree on a place, or I would veto one. And finally, I was just like, I'm just going to go get some steaks, and we'll throw them on the grill. Everybody was on board with that. And I'm like a filet or ribeye guy, but I got some sirloins at Walmart just because it was the fastest and easiest way to do it. I'm an LB's man, but went to Walmart, and they were just okay. I didn't have time to season them long enough, and I did skillet and oven. It just, whatever. It was fine.
It was dinner. Yeah.
Yeah. They didn't go to bed hungry. And then I can't even remember what we did last night. I think I picked something up. Or 2 nights ago. Last night, Ava Montgomery and Obi agree on Mexican. Fine going to it. We can do carry out, whatever. Frances doesn't like Mexican. Like, if we go to a Mexican restaurant, she gets a burger. I doesn't even like their chicken tenders. Like, she just give me a burger. So
that's
she's
a
like,
hamburguesa.
I said, look, is there something you want from Nuke's? It's over there next to El Agave. And I can zip in Nuke's. You want a pizza from there? She's like, how about salmon? All right. My kids love salmon. So it's impossible on the app to order a side of salmon. Like, that's a topping for their salads. It's not, they'll put a full salmon fillet on top of a salad. I didn't know how to do it online, so I just went to the register there, and I was like, hey, can I get a side of salmon? Got kind of a funny look. I was like, no, just a side of salmon. And by the way, I love Nuke's. Big fan. Eat there a gazillion times. It's just an odd story. So she rings it up, and she says, that'll be $18. I said, what? And she just kind of looked at me. I was like, for just I said, I thought that was like $6 or $8. She says, no, it's 18. And she calls somebody else over, and he putters around on the register for a second. He goes, yeah, it's $18. I was like, okay. He goes, unless, like, do you want it on a salad? I was like, no, I just want the salmon fillet. I was like, I'll take a salad, but he goes, well, if you get it on a salad, it's $14.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Hold on a second. I was like, do you realize how much that doesn't make sense? Like, all I want is like a little plastic container with a salmon fillet in it. That's $18. But if I ask you to do more work and give me more food, then the salmon actually costs less? He's like, yeah. I was like, how does that make sense? He's like, it's just kind of what it said. Yeah, he doesn't have any control over it. I just thought that was really...
Somebody needs to go back into their toast.
What are we doing here?
You go back in and check your price points there. Do a little menu mapping.
C Spire text line is the best way for you to get in touch with us. 601-879-4395. 601-879-4395. Your team has you covered on the field. C Spire has you covered everywhere else with the best technology for home, work, and on the go. Backed by local 24/7 support. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. Oh, jeez. Thomas. He says they know you're big wallet cross, not small wallet cross.
Yeah, well, your reputation likely precedes you where you go. So,
regardless, it makes no sense.
Break out the gold card. Yeah, that doesn't
Somebody
make
said
sense.
the side of salmon is $7.99. The order of salmon is $18. It comes with 2 pieces. You can also find the order of salmon in the ready-to-go area.
Okay.
All right. Good to know. So an order of salmon is 2 pieces for $18 makes a little more sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Do you enjoy salmon a lot?
I like it.
Yeah. I found you can get at like the grocery stores, you can get a pretty decent little cut. Yeah, the pre-wrapped and packaged. Throw it on the grill, man.
I was at the grocery store the other day, and I got 2 big salmon fillets, like enough to feed 4 or 5 people, and I don't think it cost $18 for that. Yeah. Now I had to go home and prep it and all that good stuff. Anyway, mentioned Andy Gibson earlier. We get this on the C Spire text line. Andy is my guy. Gunn comes in second. Philip Gunn is not a name that we mentioned as potential, but that's another one that there have been some whispers and there have been some thoughts and there have been some, well, maybe he will. I will say this. I think the longer that Phil Gunn is out of office, talking about the former Speaker of the House, good man, good politician, probably would do a wonderful job as governor. I think the longer he's out of politics, the more difficult it becomes to come back. Does that make any sense?
Oh, yeah. The name has to be fresh. And with a field that will be obviously fairly crowded, you never know. I mean, maybe blending in with a wallpaper for a couple years isn't a bad idea. But the further you get away from it, though, I'm with you. The staying power reduces.
Look, the most interesting name, and I don't think it's even close. I mean, look, these names that we were kind of bandying about, I mean, all plenty qualified, all have a shot. But the most interesting name is the guy who's never served a day of political office in his life, but has been arguably the most successful businessman in the history of the state of Mississippi, alongside his brother, and that's Tommy Duff. I mean, you want to talk about a wild card.
Well, Fordyce was that too. I mean, so don't rule out that kind of.
No, you're right.
The out of left field, you don't know it's coming, but you know, he's obviously coming. You know, he's en route to the race. So,
let's hit a couple more messages on the C Spire text line. Lance, if you're Richard going on 45 on a Friday or Saturday, you got to stop in Shibuda between Waynesboro and Meridian. Get off the 4-lane, go to downtown Shibuda, stop at Skidmore's Grill, a little mom and pop restaurant. He says he plans his trips to Oxford all around stopping in Shibuda. Fantastic food. That is from John in Hurley. Thanks for the tip, John.
This is the kind of information that I really thrive upon. So
I understand.
Yeah.
Thomas in Greenwood, I just hope we don't have a contentious Republican primary and end up with too many alienated voters and open the door to a Brandon Presley win.
Brandon will be back. I can assure you that.
See, this is the hill that would exist if Tommy Duff threw his name into the ring. We get this message, C Spire text line. Who is Tommy Duff? So the answer is Tommy Duff, alongside his brother Jim, are the founders of Southern Tire Mart, KLLM, and a whole bunch of other companies. They've got a number of automobile dealerships. They've got an offshore drilling company. They've got a construction company, like heavy construction, road construction, bridge construction, et cetera, et cetera.
Very diversified.
Very diversified, wildly successful, very down to earth. I mean, the fact that they are the two publicly known billionaires in the state of Mississippi, and the question of who is Tommy Duff, like, that's the biggest issue, right? Name ID?
Yep.
But man, the idea of somebody who has been as successful in business leading the state of Mississippi in a time when things are going very well economically, that's really fascinating. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass.
The news you need.
Every 10, 15 minutes, there's something.
The talk you love.
They really talk about the things that matter. I'm into all that stuff.
Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
Scratch for another sake. Race is on and it looks like heartaches. And the winner loses all.
Man, the C Spire text line popping this morning. Love hearing from you. Love connecting with you. Love you adding to the conversation. 601-879-4395. Talked about it briefly during our news headlines. Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys passed away. It was announced by his family yesterday. Considered the visionary and fragile leader whose genius for melody, arrangements, and wide-eyed self-expression inspired Good Vibrations, California Girls, and other summertime anthems and made him one of the world's most influential recording artists. Passed away at the age of 82. This is one of the most complex vocal arrangements to go along with musical arrangements that there is. And you had a lot of respected musicians who have talked specifically about this song. Isolated vocals, so a cappella only here. They've taken the guitar and piano and drum and everything else tracks out of this recording. Here's just a little part of God Only Knows.
And God only knows what I'd be without you. If If you should ever leave me, the life would still go on, believe me. The world could show nothing to me, so what good would living do me?
The really complex part is when they lay it on top of each other. It's the God, it's almost like a call and response as it goes. And the Beach Boys were, I mean, it's crazy to say when you were born in 1980 and not 1965 that the Beach Boys were the soundtrack of your youth, but in a lot of ways I feel like they were. I mean, it was just song after song, hit after hit. I don't know how you listen to Surfing in the USA and don't smile. If everybody had an ocean.
I wonder how many people from like Ohio went and learned to surf because of the Beach Boys.
Brian Wilson surfed one time in his life. It's all right, though. Just figure out a way to make it work. And they certainly did that. It was a complicated story, though. Brian Wilson's father, Murray, was the early manager of the Beach Boys. And it was kind of a contentious relationship from a business standpoint and from a musical standpoint. That was a strained relationship. You had three Wilson brothers that were part of the group, along with Mike Love, who was a cousin. The whole music thing started in high school and really started younger than that with Brian Wilson. You were talking about it earlier. He's one of those that it was like the ear just worked. And he kind of learned by ear and taught himself. And one of the really cool stories is his real genius was in production and writing and mixing. And he started it when he was like, 12 or 14 years old with a tape recorder that he got as like a birthday or Christmas present. And he started, recording stuff and dubbing stuff and mixing things and all those things. I read a lot about Brian Wilson last night. Probably went down a rabbit hole farther than I should have. But you know who his daughter is, right? He's actually got 7 kids. Are you familiar with the group Wilson Phillips? Of course you are, right? Late 80s. Carney Wilson is Brian Wilson's daughter. They were estranged for a while, got back together. That Wilson Phillips song, Hold On, from 1990, it's Brian Wilson's daughter. You already knew that, didn't you? Or did you not?
Yeah.
Okay. I can't stump you on music.
Well, you can, but that one, I'm one of those junkies with certain topics. When the Beach Boys, I'll watch anything that on YouTube about them. They're fascinating, and just as you were saying, how they got started and the innocent nature of just kind of recording yourself and recording other people's voices and playing them over on top of music. And it's at that age, learning those skills is opened the door for the creativity, and you can hear it in everything. It's just absolutely melodic and hypnotic a bit, and it's just, thank God we have creative element like that in this world, After
the early years, Brian Wilson did not tour with the Beach Boys. He went through major drug abuse and mental health issues, and the pressure of being on the road, producing music, writing music was just too much, and he had multiple breakdowns. AP writes it this way: the Beach Boys' music was like an ongoing party with Wilson as host and wallflower. He was a tall, shy man, partially deaf, allegedly because of beatings by his father, Murray, with a sweet, crooked grin, and he rarely touched the surfboard unless a photographer was around. But out of the lifestyle that he observed in such musical influences as Chuck Berry and the Four Freshmen, he conjured a golden soundscape, sweet melodies, shining harmonies, vignettes of beaches, cars, and girls that resonated across time and climates. They had the one album that was like all car songs.
Yeah, the Deuce and then the
Little Deuce Scoop, you don't know. Yeah, I mean, just incredible. Somebody said, wasn't he the one with the Manson family? Were you joking when you said that earlier?
No, the Manson and them were buds, man.
Marilyn Manson?
No, Charles.
Charles Manson.
Yeah, Charlie. Crazy Charlie.
Ooh.
Yeah, he was actually a decent musician, decent enough, very folksy, bad guitarist, though. And he felt that, Wilson could, help him out. And he befriended him, and, mainly through the girls is how it kind of got started. And this crazy dude named Charlie kind of shows up and, starts hanging out and lives there. And finally, Wilson has to actually evacuate the property because, and so he moves off. And the story goes back where, Terry Melcher and him, who's Doris Day's son, her only son, that was his kind of producer, manager. Well, Melcher had rented the house where the murders of, had happened there with Sharon Tate. So, and Manson's going back there to try to find Terry Melcher or try to find Wilson. And they aren't there, so they just, take it out on Polanski's wife and Matt. So it's a crazy, crazy story. But, yeah, Wilson actually had realized dude was crazy, and he had to get away from him and all the family, so to speak. Yeah.
Hey,
and he did.
You know what one of the really fascinating things is? Like, some of this pressure that Brian Wilson felt in his life, the rise of the Beach Boys coincided with the American invasion of the Beatles. And they were kind of like the two it bands of rock and roll in the 60s. And Brian Wilson viewed it as a rivalry and felt this pressure. Maybe there was some jealousy there.
Yeah, but Dennis was the one. It wasn't Brian, the older. It was the middle one, the one that actually surfed all the time and chased the girls and all that. There was the three brothers.
Yeah.
Dennis was, I believe it was Dennis, who's the one that was buddied up real tight with Charlie. And then the other brothers didn't like that.
But you're not talking about the Beatles now. You went back to what you were saying.
The Beach Boys. Okay, I just want to make sure I have the right guy. Because Brian's the oldest. Middle one was the one, if I remember, was the one that was real buddied up with Manson for several years.
Yeah.
But, yeah, they all
but
going back to the Beatles, yeah.
A lot of the pressure and the mental health issues reportedly are from this need to compete with the Beatles. But I guess it's ironic thing is there was a lot of admiration from the members of the Beatles of Brian Wilson and his songwriting ability and his ability to blend melodies and put the music together and the whole thing. So
those dynamics. I mean,
what a great time! Yeah, what a great talent.
And struggling with that pressure too. Can you only imagine becoming so famous so quick and being the sound of a generation? And I mean the pressure that has to have, that you have to continue being innovative and competing and all that. And I can tell you, I mean, being around musicians, writing a great hit song ain't easy. It is very difficult. When you put out that many, though, goodness, I mean, at what point in time does the well run dry? And if you know that as a creator of content, an entertainer, when do you start feeling that? And I think that's what he was feeling a bit. It's like, how can I keep this up forever?
Ashley Edwards is going to join us coming up next. We're glad to be with you this morning. Ron DeSantis, the governor of the state of Florida, well, he's watching the protest in California, and he says it's different in Florida. They're not playing around.
And we also have a policy that if you're driving on one of those streets and a mob comes and surrounds your vehicle and threatens you, you have a right to flee for your safety. And so if you drive off and you hit one of these people, that's their fault for impinging on you. You don't have to sit there and just be a sitting duck and let the mob grab you out of your car and drag you through the streets.
Ron DeSantis says, protester gets in your way, just run them over. That's paraphrasing. That's basically what he said. Mornings with Richard Cross. Ashley Edwards joins us next. Glad to be with you.
That's right.
From the SeabrookPaint.com. SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Is brought to you by Covington County Hospital in Collins, where your health matters.
Coffee, conversations, and clarity. What a great way to start your Mississippi day. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk, Mississippi.
Been playing at a room on the strip for 10 years in Vegas.
Tomorrow Tomorrow in a Mississippi Minute with Steve Azar and Sports Talk Mississippi will be at the Greenville Golf and Country Club for the Delta Soul Celebrity Golf and Charity event. Tons of celebrities on hand, actors, musicians, sports stars. It's the Delta Soul Celebrity Golf and Charity event in Greenville coming up tomorrow. That is Steve Azar's event, and we've been to that for a bunch of years, and man, it's a lot of fun. The golf is fun, but the conversations are an absolute blast. You don't want to miss that tomorrow afternoon. You don't want to miss this either. Ashley Edwards joining us this morning. Ashley, great to see you. He is an entrepreneur on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, former president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, and a contributor here at SuperTalk Mississippi on the news side of things. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Richard. How are you?
Man, life's good. Life's really good. How about on the Mississippi Gulf Coast, in coastal Mississippi? How's life in your world right now?
It's been good. We've had some nice weather for quite a while, a little rain this week, but that's to be expected this time of year. So at least we're not in a drought like we were a couple years ago this time.
Was this a little bit milder spring than some have been on the coast? Like kind of tracking the temperatures, it just felt like it never got to that super hot, super sticky April, May, June.
Absolutely. That's absolutely right. I mean, you guys know up in Jackson even, but down here on the coast especially, I mean, we jump right from February into summer usually.
That's right.
We had a little bit more of a transition this year, so it was nice.
That is absolutely nice. We were visiting with Henry Barber a couple of days ago. He was on the coast talking about some of the great things that are happening down there. I guess maybe we should start with the Gulfport mayor's race and ultimately Hugh Keating winning that spot. It was fascinating as we transition from primary season to general season in the municipal elections, because I feel like during the primary portion of it, all the focus was on Jackson and that big crowded field that was happening in the capital city. But then when we got to the general, that election in Gulfport really heated up and ended up having a lot of outside attention and outside money poured into that race.
Yeah, that's a very unusual thing for a mayor's race in Gulfport. So this was kind of a first for all of us. I think it started to heat up after the results of the Democrat primary in that race, seeing the turnout, which was impressive for a Democrat primary in Gulfport. Well-known, longtime legislator Sonia Williams-Barnes that became the Democrat nominee, and someone who had shown some electoral power in Gulfport, running for legislature before. But Hugh Keating is also a guy who is very well known, especially around Gulfport, but around the coast, has served as a board attorney for a number of boards going way back. He was a member of the business council when I was there for the entirety of my tenure. So I got to know Hugh very well. Very good man, very smart guy. And so, I think that there was maybe a little bit of an overplay on just how endangered that seat would have been for the Republican candidate. The results sort of play that out a little bit, but I understand the caution considering the energy they saw in the Democrat primary there. But that energy really did not carry over to the general in Gulfport. So it ended up not being nearly as close as what some folks had potentially predicted it would be.
And that's what I was going to ask you. I mean, we talked to Mike Hurst, we talked to other people on the coast that were just really, really focused on turnout and how that was going to be the driver if Hugh Keating was going to win. Was that misplaced concern or was it legitimate? And the reason that Keating won is because from a turnout standpoint, he got what he needed.
Look, I don't think turnout is ever a misplaced concern in a municipal election. I mean, when you look at the vote totals in mayor's races, in council seat races, a few hundred people turning out either way can make the difference. And so turnout's always very, very important. Really, that's what a municipal election is. At the end of the day, it's a turnout game. It is getting your folks out to the polls. And interest is obviously a lot lower in municipal elections than what we see in statewide or certainly in national elections. So I think it was right for them to focus on that. At the end of the day, it worked. So they were victorious. It's interesting to me that the dynamics at play in the Democrat primary led to a lot of turnout in the primary that didn't carry over to the general. So So it's very unusual to see a lot of energy around a municipal primary that then doesn't play forth into the general election.
You know, it's really funny as you're talking about vote totals. I mean, 53-47, if you're talking about a presidential election, you're talking about a landslide, an absolute runaway. But when you've only got, 13,000 votes, 53-47, that separates the two candidates by less than 1,000 votes. And I mean, it can get squirrely in a hurry.
No question about it. I mean, and I think that's more the general rule for a lot of municipal elections. I mean, it is becoming more and more rare to see people run away in landslides in municipal elections. And so what you're often seeing are these very close races that, really you can drive through turnout. As I looked around, statewide and just sort of looking at the results of a lot of races, it was interesting for me to see how many incumbents were defeated this time around. A lot of very well-known incumbents across the state that did not get reelected. Yeah, some very surprising results.
Hey, one of the things that we've talked about a fair amount, and it's been more in terms of asking questions. Our colleague at SuperTalk, Ricky Matthews, has written and talked about this pretty extensively, and it's the whole tying together of the three coast counties, Hancock, Harrison, and Jackson County, running west to east there, to create kind of an economic engine, an economic partnership. We have seen and talked a lot about Link up in the Golden Triangle with what they've done from an economic development standpoint, bringing companies in. You got some other parts of the state of Mississippi that have either announced or getting ready to announce similar partnerships with multiple counties. I don't know that there's a three-county section of the state, though, that is more linked together as one. Now, they are all three very independent, and just ask the people that live there, right? I mean, Hancock is different than Harrison, is different than Jackson. What does it take to get these three past talking about it, and we're open to the idea, and really creating a true economic partnership that has the ability to significantly drive industry on the coast?
Well, that's a $1 billion question.
Maybe a multi-billion-dollar question.
I've worked on that issue for the last 20 years of my career and hadn't figured out the right answer yet. Look, there's some dynamics at play here that are long-standing. It is hard to overcome the culture of independence and independent thinking, and cities down here on the coast feel a great deal of independence from the counties and from each other. The counties feel a great deal of independence from each other. There have been a number of shared governance type initiatives that we've pushed over the years. I mean, you look at the creation of a regional tourism entity, the creation of county-wide utility authorities. Those things were much more difficult than they ever should have been to do, but they were all sort of aimed at a common goal, which is getting these folks to work together. And I'll just be completely transparent and candid with you. The farther you get into those things, the faster the discussion becomes, we're going to blow this up because we don't like working together. So it is a real challenge. There has not been a regional initiative yet that some county did not want to pull out of, or some group of cities did not want to pull out of after it got started, because there is just an absolute culture of not working together down here. And, there's a lot of ways to overcome that. It makes a lot of pragmatic sense, as you know, and I think that's what Ricky has talked a lot about. I mean, it means winning in the face of losing. And at some point, leaders across the coast are going to have to give up on these long-held notions of, we're losing if we're working with the guy next door. But unfortunately, it is very tied into the culture here in coastal Mississippi. It's historic. It's not something that's come about in the last 20 or even 50 years. It goes back a long way. I mean, there are people to this day, old coasties, as I would say. They won't cross the border from Biloxi to go eat at a restaurant in Gulfport. They're just not going to do it. And so, for people that are not from the coast, it may seem a little strange, but it's something that you get very used to living down here and sort of understanding the cultural direction that that has always really permeated the coast here.
I'm going to paint you into a corner when we come back. I want us to stick on this topic, and I want you to tell me about the cultural differences of the three counties, kind of what they're known for and what it is that makes each of the three unique, and what the bridge might be to tying those three together, because it just feels like the opportunity to create an economic powerhouse there it's within reach if anybody's willing to kind of stick out their arm and grab it and hold on to it. Visiting with Ashley Edwards, coastal Mississippi entrepreneur, former president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, and works with us here at SuperTalk Mississippi some as well. Mornings with Richard Cross. We're back with you right after this.
From the Venable Glass Traffic
Matters. Mornings with Richard Cross on SuperTalk Mississippi.
Start the 8 o'clock hour. Dr. Andrew Wiest is a history professor and author from Southern Miss. Going to join us. He's got a new book that's out about. We'll wait and talk about that when we get to it. Really looking forward to that conversation. Enjoying this conversation as well right now. Mornings with Richard Cross, SuperTalk Mississippi. Ashley Edwards is our guest, joining us from coastal Mississippi. So I said I was going to try and paint you into a corner. I don't know if everybody will love with your characterizations, but when you talk about the uniqueness of Harrison, Hancock, Jackson counties, what is it that makes each of the three kind of stand alone and unique?
Well, let's start at a kind of a core level and look at really historically some of the decisions that have been made by the various counties. And let's start in Jackson County, which is the easternmost coastal county bordering Mobile County. Mm-hmm. Huge industrial base there with shipbuilding, very high wages, and a lot of those industrial jobs that they have in Jackson County. Unlike Harrison County, Jackson County never adopted gaming. And so Harrison County, which had really became this gaming mecca, and Jackson County went in quite the opposite direction. Jackson County has always had a lot of political power. The home of Trent Lott, the longtime senator from Mississippi with tremendous power in Washington. And so Jackson County, I think, has always had a bit of a mindset that says, look, we can go it alone. We have been perfectly successful. We've been able to get done the things we want to get done. They've been very successful individually in economic development, obviously the huge industrial base. And then you kind of contrast that with Harrison County, which has been the seat of tourism, obviously the rise of the gaming industry, a lot of military presence in Harrison County with the CB base and with Keesler Air Force Base. And then Hancock County on the westernmost side bordering Louisiana, the smallest by far of the three coastal counties, home of Stennis Space Center, Bay St. Louis, Waveland. It was ground zero for Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
And let me just stick on that a second, Richard, because in many ways, what we saw after Hurricane Katrina was the dissolving of some of this unwillingness to work together. A lot of the regional type initiatives that were created after Hurricane Katrina were wildly successful, and I think it was because of this common understanding is when you've been knocked down flat on your back, and you know that you're going to need a lot of help to stand back up, you're willing to take a hand out wherever it comes from. And so there was incredible amount of cooperation. That has really gone away over the last 20 years or so. But oftentimes what's at the root of this, from a county perspective, is sort of a Harrison County versus Jackson County dynamic. Hancock County oftentimes will be cooperative and will go along with the other two if they're in a position that they can help create some sort of a regional initiative. But oftentimes you see this sort of this push and pull between Harrison and Jackson County. And I think some of that has to do with the fact that Harrison County is the larger county in terms of population, larger county in terms of total economy, certainly more well-known in terms of the cities and the tourism industry and things like that. But Jackson County historically has arguably been the more successful, the county that has sort of punched above its weight to a larger extent. And then you just sort of look at historically the way that these development patterns have been different, the way that different ethnic groups settled the various counties. A lot more French settlers in Harrison County, a lot more Spanish settlers over in Hancock County. And we're talking, when I say historically, we're talking hundreds of years ago, and different shared history, different cultures. And so in such a small geographic area, you really do have a lot of uniqueness. Ocean Springs is nothing like Long Beach. Long Beach is nothing like Bay St. Louis. And so these counties that are separated by these cities that are separated by 10 or 15 miles have very distinct character, very distinct identity, very distinct politics in some ways. And all of those things contribute to this sort of culture of independence. Now, one very important thing I do want to mention here is, and a lot of it is tied to history, but when you look, a lot of this is also generational, Richard. And when you look at a lot of the younger generation, the young leaders on the coast, up and coming leaders, they don't carry this with them. Yeah. And, we did a program at the Gulf Coast Business Council for many years called the Masters Leadership Program. We brought in lots of young executives, and the initiatives that would come out of those were all sort of unanimous initiatives of, we need to start combining shared governance and combining economic development operations and doing all these things together, because to them it was a no-brainer. So I do think in time you will start to see some of that change as you see these younger generations take over from the older generations that have historically led in a lot of these counties and cities.
We're out of time this morning, but Ashley, I'd like for you to come back soon and us talk a little bit more about this, because when you describe the uniqueness of the industry in each of those three counties, and you think about the idea of forming a partnership, it makes me curious, okay, what would be the target? Because it doesn't, you don't necessarily just want a car manufacturer or just want aerospace stuff, so it's really a fascinating thing. I wish we had more time. I appreciate your time this morning. Really enjoyed the conversation and look forward to visiting with you soon.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Richard.
Thanks, Ashley. We got more coming up with you. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Reaching across the state and across the aisle. Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Come on, Southern Miss. I don't know why it's not playing.
8 o'clock hour. Welcome back. It's Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk Mississippi, streaming at supertalk.fm, Supertalk TV, of course, on your local SuperTalk Mississippi radio stations. Happy to be with you. Welcome you to join the conversation on the C Spire text line, 601-879-4395. So much happening at C Spire in sports and business. Having the right team behind you matters. Partner with C Spire today for business solutions from dedicated certified IT engineers. Learn more at cspire.com. C Spire, inspired by you. I'm excited about my next guest, our next conversation, as the more I read and dug into the CV, to the resume of Dr. Andrew Wiest, the more fascinated I became. He is a professor of history at Southern Mississippi. He has served in a bunch of different roles at USM and at some other universities as well, and Lance, you'll like this. I keep referencing Hamilton. Mm-hmm. One of the famous lines and one of the songs in Hamilton was his wife talking about him. He writes like he's running out of time. I feel like that might apply to Dr. Andrew Wiest with all the works as well. He writes as if he's running out of time. Dr. Wiest, good morning.
Good morning, and thank you for having me today, Richard.
I appreciate it very much. I want to get into this new book that you've got, but I think we got to go back first. I need to know about your childhood. Did you, as a young boy, have little plastic toy soldiers that were lined up in a sandbox and were going through different war strategies and figure out where did the fascination with the armed services and war history come from?
I 100% had the soldiers lined up and, was playing battles and things like that, while my more popular high school friends were doing popular high school friend things. We were playing board games at home, playing war games. But my dad served in the military. He served in Korea. My grandparents, my grandfather and his brother served in World War II. So being a veteran was an important thing in our family. And war just fascinated me. History is hard to understand, but war seemed simpler to understand. It seemed like on one day, Omaha Beach, let's say, the world could have changed. It could have gone one way or the other, and I found that to be fascinating.
It's interesting. My wife, or on my wife's side of the family, she's got a cousin that went to West Point, and he now flies helicopters for the Army and trains there. But it's like if you go back to when he was 4 and 5 years old, he was doing the same thing, right? It was like he was always on that path. He was drawn to military documentaries. He was playing toy soldiers, all of those things. And it's funny how your childhood can shape what you do in adulthood when you got to go out and make a living and have a family of your own and all those things. And yet sometimes those things that we're passionate about early in life, they hang on forever.
Sure, and compare myself to Michael Jordan is way out of line, but
no, by all means, I want to see where you're going with that.
Jordan got paid to do what he loved to do, and that's the way it worked out for me. If I had a different kind of job, I'd still be trying to write and study military history, and Southern Miss was nice enough to pay me for it, so it worked out great.
Yeah. Where would you describe your primary area of expertise? Is it Vietnam? Is that where you've done the most research and the most work?
Well, I started off in World War I because everybody studied World War II at that point.
Right.
And nobody studied Vietnam, which is the war that fascinated me the most because I was too young for it, but my older sister, her friends fought in Vietnam, and she lost some of my friends there. That fascinated me, but nobody taught it. So because it takes about 50 years for records to be open for you to be able to study a war. So in mid-career, I switched over to Vietnam, the war that fascinated me. And then as I kind of cut my teeth on writing about the Vietnam War, it dawned on me that nobody was writing about the wars that we were in as an older adult, Iraq, Afghanistan, and wars that my friends were fighting in this case, the Mississippi National Guard. So that resulted in the late career shift to looking at these present wars to kind of open the history book on them.
So your newest book is, the title is Dogwood, a National Guard Unit's War in Iraq. And, one of the things that I try to do on the radio, whether it's sports in the afternoons or it's news and politics in the morning, is to try to localize the content, right? There are lots of places you can go to get national news and big picture stories. How do you make it more local? How do you make it matter in Mississippi? And I feel like in a lot of ways, maybe it was just the right storyline. Maybe it was where you had the most access, but you made it local by following a Mississippi National Guard unit through that time in Iraq. Tell me a little bit more about the process in writing Dogwood.
I learned this process. The biggest book I wrote was a book called The Boys 67, Charlie Company's War in Vietnam, which looks specifically at one combat company because soldiers are small groups. Soldiers fight and have camaraderie and meaning in small groups. So if you're bigger than a company, you kind of lose the heart of the story. And the way to get to that story is oral histories, interviewing the soldiers themselves. Documents can tell you where they were at, what they did, what they accomplished, but to put the soul of the 19-year-old soldier into the battle, you have to speak to the now 60-year-old adult and get their memories. So I learned that process in writing that book. And as you mentioned, local. I grew up with these guys. I knew the National Guard. Its story had not been told. The National Guard is big in the news today, and really nobody knows what they're talking about when it comes to the National Guard because they're a very different part of our armed forces. So I knew their story hadn't been told, and I knew I had this unique connection by growing up with a lot of these guys. And so I went to members of the unit and began that process of speaking with them. Speaking with them everywhere from their reunions to eating out at Crescent City to going to their memorials. Yesterday was the 20th anniversary of the most costly day of this unit in Iraq. They lost 4 guys on that day. And yesterday the unit went to raise the flag at the cemetery again, which is something they do every year. So this is intense, it's personal, and it's local, like you were mentioning.
And yet, when you take a local story, it can connect with a larger audience. I mean, you can drop this book in Montana, and it could connect with Montanans because of the way the story is told, right? The characters are compelling enough to be able to do that?
100%. The National Guard in 2005 had over half of the troops in Iraq. So there were units like the one I'm writing about from Alabama, from Tennessee, from Louisiana, from Indiana. So my goal was to focus in on one type group and use that story as an example of what everyone was going through. Certainly the guys from Louisiana are not going to see their names in this book.
Right.
But they'll see themselves in this book. They'll see their story because what they were going through was the same, just in a different part of Iraq, just with different friends, just with different places. But this story is meant to be representative of the entire National Guard story.
You mentioned personal relationships, and so you were able to go for those sit-down interviews. The combat experience is unique for everybody that participates in it. There are some that are affected in ways that they never want to talk about it again. There are some who are able to just transition back to everyday life in a somewhat normal way. Was there a common thread that you found as you were going through these interviews and having these conversations? And by the way, we've only got a minute till the break, so if we need to pause on this, we'll pick it up on the other side.
There was really no common thread. As you mentioned, some people come home and are very well adjusted. Some who committed suicide, and everything in between. So there is no common thread. War affects individual soldiers in very intensely individual ways. So that was a big part of the learning process for me.
Dr. Andrew Wiest is my guest. We're going to continue this conversation. His new book is called Dogwood, A National Guard Unit's War in Iraq, and it focuses specifically on a National Guard unit from Mississippi. We'll learn more about them and also read him a text from one of his students on the C Spire text line when we come back. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass Traffic Center.
Now, Mornings with Richard Cross. What's up?
Let's get the show going.
Super Talk Mississippi.
Thanks for being with us on this Thursday morning. Today is the 12th of June, 2025. Dr. Andrew Wiest is my guest. He is an author and professor of history, specifically war history at the University of Southern Mississippi. I'll just get the suspense out of the way. This is from one of your students, C Spire text line. You can connect with us, 601-879-4395. Andrew made a huge impact on my life. I was a student of his through the British Studies program, and his enthusiasm for a deeper understanding was infectious. I'm so glad you're having him on. Thank you, Andrew. It's nice to hear.
It is nice to hear. You're always worried when a student writes in if they're going to complain about their grades. So at least we didn't get that.
That's good. Although in my case, I think I might still be complimentary because I know the grades weren't their fault. They were probably my fault one way or the other. So got to have some self-awareness.
That's usually the case.
Yeah, more times than not. We were talking about the interviews and the writing process for Dogwood, a National Guard unit's war in Iraq. This is the newest book from Andrew Wiest. And when I get to do an interview, whether it's talking with you right now or Ashley earlier or Governor or whoever else, the most rewarding part to me is when we start with, or I start with a little bit of a plan on where I think I want this to go, and then I learn something that I had no idea I was going to learn, or get an insight that I had never thought about before. When you're having these conversations with National Guardsmen who served in Iraq, did you go in with a plan only to find those conversations going somewhere completely different?
Well, you have to go in with the plan, especially when interviewing a veteran about the most critical event of their lives. You have to have done your research. You have to have a grasp of what they did, because you can immediately invalidate yourself if you ask stupid questions, if you ask the wrong things. And you're there in some ways to validate what they did. On the other hand, you have to let them go with it, because as a historian, what you want is to not impact their memories by leading them. You want their memories to lead you. So the interviews are very tricky. You have to be knowledgeable about what they did and where they served and who they were and who their commanding officers were and those kinds of things. But you also don't want to make them think they want you to answer the question in a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
You want what they know to be the truth. So it's a difficult process.
Is there a validation?
But extremely rewarding.
Yeah, is there a validation process that you have to go through as well? I mean, if you interview a veteran that makes a certain claim about something, do you have to then go and fact check that and verify or re-verify their account of what happened, or do their words just speak for themselves?
100% of the time, you need to fact check and verify. That's why in the case of the unit I'm writing about in this book, there were at the most about 250 guys at the FOB at any one time. And what you can't do is tell the story through any one person's eyes, because 250 people are going to remember it 250 ways. So if you find a story that needs to be in the book, you need to validate it through other veterans, get their look at that event. But you also have to have the documents. You have to have the pieces of paper that back that up too. Especially in this case, it was really difficult with dates, because interviewing guys 15 years after the event, and they'll come up with this really compelling story about getting blown up by an IED, and their instant memories would be just etched into their minds. But you'd ask them, okay, did that happen in April? And they'd be like, well, maybe June, maybe August. I mean, their memory for dates was really difficult. And when you write a history book, you got to get the dates in the right order. And so, especially to deal with the time frame, I had to have the documents as well.
The book title is Dogwood.
And I was really lucky about. Pardon, go ahead.
I was just promoting the book again, Dogwood, a National Guard unit's war in Iraq, and it is available for purchase now. I want you to pick up that thought, but tell me, is there a book signing tour? Is available online, available in bookstores? Where are we getting this?
The easiest place to get is Amazon. Like most books, we are doing some book signings. We've already been to Oxford and headed to New Orleans to do one, and hopefully we'll have some local ones as well. But what I was going to say was I was very blessed that about 6 of the guys kept pretty detailed journals while they were there. And those are just
yeah.
like digging up a nugget of gold. Those are perfect.
Well, you talk about immediate validation. That gives you, were they forthcoming with those? Hey, take this, use it as you need it, and then return it?
Yes. In every case, they were willing to let me use any part of the journal. The main thing I wanted from the journals were, again, confirmation of dates, which was critical, but also it's immediate. On June the 11th, 4 guys were killed. And when the guy's writing in his journal on June the 12th, that's immediate. That's in his heart. You can see the emotion in these journals. Not 20 years later, its impact was incredible.
Wow. Is there an audiobook that goes with this?
There is. There is certainly an audiobook available, yes.
That's I love to read and I love to hold a book, but I'm on the go so much that it's like that's the way that's the Audible app, and I can just download it right there and listen on the go or on the lawnmower or wherever. It has changed my reading habits.
I love audiobooks as well, but it's a weird aspect of being an author. I've never listened to one of mine. It seems a little bit self-serving to listen to your own book. But it's incredibly interesting to hear it in somebody else's voice.
Yeah, that is fascinating. You said something a second ago. National Guard very much in the news right now in California, with the California Guard being sent in by President Trump, much to the chagrin of Governor Newsom. And you said something, nobody knows what the heck they're talking about when they're talking about the National Guard and the role that they would play. Or the role that they do play. Take me a little deeper on that.
Sure. The National Guard historically has just always kind of been there. I mean, those are the guys who show up after a hurricane. Those are the guys are deployed to World War II or World War I and doing the same stuff the military does, plus other stuff. But unlike the Army, that has a place to study it, unlike the Navy that has a place to study it, the National Guard doesn't have a resource to study itself because it's fractured into 54 sub things. It's an Illinois Guard, it's a California Guard, it's a Mississippi Guard. So just 2 years ago, for instance, there were 600 books that came out on the Army. There were 6 that came out on the National Guard. So historically, it's been overlooked in part because it's difficult to research. And it's the most complicated part of our military because it's state and federal, it's local, it's everything. So when we were getting questions about the National Guard, people didn't even know how it functioned, much less what its constitutional role was.
Yeah.
So the National Guard needs more work done on it, and that was one of the ideas behind this book.
Is it the most underappreciated branch of the military complex within the United States?
100%. It's what our country was built on. Our country was built on state control of the military because we greatly feared what Britain had done with its military to us, and it stands alone in the world as a force that's like that, a state-controlled military that, when in times of great need, can be nationalized and turned into a chunk of the wider regular military. So it's this conundrum historically.
Is the president sending the California National Guard without the request from the governor of California concerning to you, based on the research that you've done and the conversations that you've had with the men and women of the Guard?
Taking politics out of it, because it's up to everybody to decide whether or not they think that's the correct use of the Guard. Historically, it's interesting because it shows a deeper federal control over the Guard, but it's nothing new. For instance, in the 1960s, the Guard was called out in Mississippi, in Arkansas, in Alabama to integrate schools without the governor's consent in all of those states. So this has happened before, just in a very different political kind of minefield.
Dr. Andrew Wiest, the book is Dogwood, a National Guard units war in Iraq. We don't ever pay guests, but I guess I did indirectly because while we were talking, I downloaded both Dogwood and The Boys of 67 to my Audible account. I'll get on those next. Thanks so much for your time. It was a pleasure.
Well, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed those books.
Can't wait to read them or listen to them. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi. Back with you after this.
From the Seabrook Paint.
Grab another cup of coffee and start your day right. Mornings with Richard Cross here on Super Talk, Mississippi.
Girl, you taught me how to hurt real bad.
Levi in Ellisville on the C Spire text line talking about Dr. Wiest. He says, incredible author, Boys of 67, one of my favorite books. Another one, Dr. Wiest, one of my favorite professors at Southern Miss. Whether you were a great student or a student that needed the help of your academic advisor and forgiveness grades 3 days before graduation to get across the finish line. It sounded oddly specific, didn't it?
Yeah, maybe coming from you, huh?
Just saying, painting a picture here.
Yeah.
You likely had one or two or maybe three teachers that stood out among all the rest. And sometimes that teacher is one that was like popular with everybody. They're just so good. They have the ability to captivate. And sometimes it's like maybe that one was just unique to you. It's interesting to me when I think about my time in college, Lance, there was a professor at a journalism degree with a political science minor. And within the political science, and it just as easily could have been in the history department, but it was in the political science, and he was the most straight-laced teacher. He had two sets of clothes that he wore. One was for the spring, summer, warm weather months, and the other was fall, winter, cold weather months. He had starched, pleated khaki pants, and for the warm weather months, he wore a short-sleeve white polo shirt. And for the cold weather months, he wore the same starched, pleated khaki pants with a black turtleneck, and if it was cold, he had a leather jacket.
Right, just like that. My astronomy teacher.
Exact same, every single class. His name was Dr. Daniel Geller, one of the smartest men I've ever heard speak, and the name of the class was International Conflict in the Nuclear Age.
Well, that's a good one.
Oh, it's fantastic.
My favorite, Douglas Sullivan Gonzalez. He really blew my mind, and it opened me up to a whole other world. And then with numbers, I mean, I hated math, but Dr. Summers, who was the astronomy and physics, I took 2 years of astronomy because I loved him, and he made everything such. He put these huge things in ways that a dummy like me could understand them, and really helped me, I think, very much in finance years later because you start dealing with a lot of big numbers and complicated things. But yeah, I had great professors at Ole Miss. I can't complain.
And there were three for me that stood out. So it was Daniel Geller, who I mentioned just a second ago in the political science world. And by the way, this isn't to take anything away from some of the other professors. I had the political science professors, which is interesting because I probably more so now than then, but disagreed politically with them on just about everything. Yeah. And yet they were just such gifted teachers, and for the most part, didn't bring their personal politics into their teaching, which I think there's a gift there. I think that is a genuine gift. If you've got the ability to do that. Ralph Brassett in the School of Journalism.
Excellent, yes.
Just absolutely phenomenal. And if I ever have the opportunity to teach, and I hope I do one day, thought I was going to a couple of years ago, but it just hasn't happened yet. If I ever have that opportunity, one of the things that he did in every class is something that I will do. I don't care what the subject is. 10 questions, current events, every single class.
Yeah, I taught the history of mass media at Ole Miss as when I was getting another degree. So that was a wonderful experience. Huge classroom, big.
Oh, that's the
that
Journalism 101 class.
Man, I got to teach that. That was great, man.
That's incredible. Yeah. Like the dean of the School of Journalism at the time when I was there taught that. That was Dr. Bullion. 8 o'clock Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Well, it was Bernice Morris who had the gig then, and he was on a sabbatical finishing a book, and so I kind of worked for him. But I loved the journalism department. My sister got a degree there.
P.T. Barnum and yellow journalism and all that stuff.
Good stuff. Yeah, it was big. It had projects, and had to keep up with all that. But Samir Husni also, Mr. Dr. Magazine or Mr. Magazine.
Mr. Magazine.
What a dude, man.
Samir was incredible, no doubt.
Great department.
And then the other one for me it's funny, it was an elective that I took, and I took it because I knew him, and I wanted to take his class. And one of my dearest friends ever, but it was in the business school. It was Charles Walker, who at the time, Charles had lost his vision, and so everything that he wrote, there was largely, probably 90%, maybe 95%. He had yellow legal pads and oversized Sharpies, and he wrote in big letters on those yellow legal pads. I mean, it's funny. I mean, we were close away from school as well, but like he had a phone book that he made in a 3-ring binder that was readable with people's phone numbers in them. Wherever you sat the first day, he created a seating chart, and he marked where everybody was. That was how he took attendance, and that was how he called on you during class. And he would call on anybody at any time. It wasn't raise your hand to answer a question. It would be, Mr. Tolbert, when we are talking about the sale of a piece of property, and that's not a good Charles Walker voice impression, but that was the type class he had. And so many people I've run into have talked about how he was their favorite professor. You got the book, you got the assignments, but then he taught the material, and goodness gracious did he teach the material.
I loved Chester Quarles. He was great. Former head of the Mississippi Bureau of Narcotics. I had a political science degree, history degree, and he was great because he would, you had these terrorism and all these different types of classes that he taught on the criminal side, and he was one of the most entertaining professors you would ever have. Old Bishop, in one of the old no air conditioning type rooms there, but the big ones. But he was always so much fun. I had just great experiences though, and having a professor like Dr. Wiest, wow. It's what an honor it is to have somebody that not only can teach and has students that love the ability to teach and put things into a way that you can understand, but it's also a great author. All these guys got to write, but when you pump out a book like that and you got people going, this guy's really good. It's not just a academic journal. He's putting out a really heartfelt and stories of those that have suffered and fought for this country, and you got to love that. It's just amazing and good stuff.
It's a great message on the C Spire text line. It says Charles was great. So many of his lessons started off with Mr. Jones buys a shotgun from Mr. Smith. He's right.
In Mississippi.
Or to use your example, Quarles purchases a piece of property from Bunch.
Good stuff, man.
Oh, one of the greatest men I have ever had the pleasure of knowing. Just absolutely the best.
I always had a good relationship with Dr. Kayat, and I always wish if I'd have gone to law school, that would have been the guy you really just wanted to go, okay, or if you teach a class, I want to be there for that. I don't care what it is, what I'm learning, but what an amazing guy. And that was something to me I will never forget in life, just getting to know him and what a unique individual and such a wonderful man. But really, I just, Ole Miss, and I'm sure State, Southern, all of them have great leaders, and great professors. But I have to say, I'm very thankful that I was given the opportunity to play baseball there and get a degree at Ole Miss and be a Mississippian, stay here and make a living.
Well, and again, this is one of those deals where it's like not necessarily the road we intended to go down, but it's a good topic. It happens at every level, right? You have there are 50-year-olds that remember their kindergarten teacher.
Yeah.
Why? Because she made an impression, or usually she made an impression. You remember one or two of your high school teachers more than all the rest, and that doesn't take away. But the way that teacher connected with you. We have professors like that in the community college system across the state of Mississippi. Could they be teaching at four-year colleges? Could they be teaching master's or doctorate level classes? Absolutely. But they're where they want to be. They want to be doing what they want to do. And then obviously at Ole Miss, Mississippi State, Southern Miss, Alcorn, Jackson State, etc. To me, the mark of the teacher that separates themselves in your memory from the rest of them is you learn without realizing you're learning. Mm-hmm. They captivate you in the classroom. You're not sitting there looking at your watch the entire time trying to figure out when you're going to get out of this ethics class or when you're going to get out of this law of journalism class. You're just wrapped up in the material because you like it and they've made it interesting. And then you look up at the end of the semester or you look up 25 years later and you're still able to recall things that you learned from that teacher in that class. That's teaching.
Yeah, I mean, debate
was that.
Learning. Yeah, debate was that for me. Having to stand up in front of 20 beautiful girls and give a speech was not my strong suit. I almost passed out and had a heart attack. But once I did it, I was like, man, I like this. And that teacher opened my eyes and gave me skills that I didn't even know I had. And I'm very thankful for that because it's come in very handy over the years.
New season of the Kennedy Center began last night. The President of the United States was there, mostly a positive reaction. And have you heard from the Los Angeles Police Department chief? His story a little bit different than some of the elected officials in the story they are telling. That's how we'll wrap the show up next. Mornings with Richard Cross, Super Talk, Mississippi.
From the Venable Glass.
Take a deep dive into the news and debates driving the day. All on your ride to work. Mornings with Richard Cross. Super Talk, Mississippi.
It comes from Mississippi and down in Alabama, creeping like a fever all across the land. From deep in the Delta on the Louisiana shore, the people got to have it. They want to hear some more. It's the hillbilly rock. Beat it with a drum.
Trump said, I love Les Mis. I've seen it many times. One of my favorites. Made his way down the red carpet last night wearing a tuxedo with his wife Melania on his arm for the debut performance of Les Miserables. Some critics certainly disappointed that there was not a full-on boycott by the Les Mis cast, as had been rumored. Richard Grinnell, who's running the Kennedy Center now, laughed that off last night. He said, I knew that was never going to happen. There were a few cast members that took vacation days in a somewhat of a protest to performing for the president. Packed house at the Kennedy Center. Trump came in, a few scattered boos amidst thunderous applause and chants of USA, USA, USA last night. Obviously changes at the Kennedy Center recently. Other critics note the irony of Trump attending the musical after deploying the National Guard to control protesters. The story of Jean Valjean, somewhat about protest and making lives better for other people. You a big Les Mis guy? Do you hear the people sing?
I'm more of a Squidbillies type guy,
Here I fight with you.
I love it when you start singing. I was telling Sands.
You may be the only one.
Yeah, I was telling Sands the other day. I was like, man, you don't know this, but Richard, he can sing a bit. He's like, what? What are you talking about? I was like, yes, you got to turn the key.
He said something about the other day. I was like, how about no?
I was trying to get you to bellow. God, you got to put him on the spot, man.
Yeah. LMNOP? A, B, C, D, E. We'll sing that. Let's try that one more time. LAPD chief. He had some stuff to say yesterday, and what he said was a little bit different than the peaceful protester narrative that has been put out there by many of the political types. Here is Chief Jim McDonnell, chief of the Los Angeles Police Department, in an interview with Caitlin Collins at CNN.
They have weapons of all kinds. We arrested a number of people last night for curfew violations. I think 14, and 3 out of the 14 were armed with weapons, handguns. And so when you look at that, what appears to be one thing is something very different. We've seen in those backpacks that they'll have hammers, they'll break up curbstones and concrete bollards, break up into smaller pieces, which they'll then throw at police. They put them in backpacks and walk around like that. I've seen somebody today walking around with golf balls in a backpack. So all sorts of weapons, all very potentially dangerous. We've seen commercial-grade fireworks being fired at our people, with shrapnel being put in, from what I'm told, into some of these packages. Again, that is pretty scary stuff when you look at it. Liquid being thrown on our officers, the attitude of our officers and the professionalism and restraint that they've shown is remarkable. They've done a tremendous job out there, and I'm very proud of them.
Yep, sounds like peaceful protest to me.
Yeah, that's why I'm not a cop. I don't think I could have the restraint that they're showing, honestly, and I commend them for doing that.
You know who else I commend for restraint? Caitlin Collins, for just keeping her mouth shut and letting the chief talk and explain what was going on. Because you know that running through her mind was like, do I push back? Do I push back? Do I push back? What is he saying that I can push back on? Yeah. Oh, wait, he's the chief of police. It's his officers that are on the ground. He's seeing this with his own eyes. I better just shut up and let him talk. So, well done, Caitlin Collins. Well done. It's a mess, man, and this weekend I'm afraid is going to be ugly. These protests generally have a life cycle. It's long enough to go in and, if not destroy, cripple a city, create millions of dollars of damage, do some looting, do some destruction, accomplish nothing, and then go back to the hole that you climbed out of until somebody calls you and tells you, hey, I'll pay you to come protest again.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? I mean, yeah, when the money dries up, they'll go home and then get a call again, and somebody will say, hey, we got another couple $100 a day for you. Oh, okay, cool. Okay. I'll be there.
All of a sudden, I got time on the calendar.
Got another job.
How about that? Caroline Levitt. Do I have this linked right here? She was on top of the game yesterday. She got a question about whether President Trump would be respectful of peaceful protests if they happen during the military parade in D.C. coming up this weekend. Let's see if I got her response. It was so good. It was succinct. It was very in your face. I don't think I've got it. But it was the line where she goes, of course the president believes in peaceful protest. What a stupid question. And it just moves on to the next one.
Yeah, let's move on.
And it was in the most,
just matter of fact.
PTO mom, matter of fact, you idiot. Yes, of course he believes in that. What a dumb question. What a stupid question. Next. Oh, man. Thomas says the protest will end when the big beautiful bill is passed out of the Senate. We'll see. Hey, thanks for being with us. Scott Sands in tomorrow. For my buddy Lance, I'm Richard. Appreciate our guest this morning. It's Mornings with Richard Cross on Super Talk Mississippi. Don't forget Delta Blue or Delta Soul.
A Super Talk Mississippi media production.